Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Reflections Around the Fire Conversations tonight in English. And I'm really happy tonight to have a dear friend from many, many years of spiritual activity, TJ Jackson. Hey, TJ, how are you?
I'm doing well, Fred. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Welcome to the conversation around the fire. For those that are joining us the first time, we are broadcasting live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And we invite you to make your comments, to ask your questions, to participate, and to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way, if you enable the notifications, you'll be notified of when we have future episodes. We have conversations around the fire every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Portuguese, which is getting translated with English subtitles. So stay tuned for that if you don't speak Portuguese. And every other Wednesday at 7 p.m., we have conversations in English. Tonight, we're doing it a little earlier, but it's still a great conversation around the fire. And why the fire, for those that never been here before, it's to take us back to those mythical times of our ancestry when we were hunter-gatherers and we lived in small tribes and we were really connected to nature. And at the end of the day, we would sit around a fire. We would exchange glances with each other, with the people in our community that we trust, that we count on as friends for survival. We would sing, we would tell jokes, we would laugh, we would cry. And all the while, we would look up into the sky at night and also wonder, what are we doing here? Where do we come from? Where are we going? That's how Spirit Reflections was born last year during the pandemic. And we hope that everyone that comes to these conversations can leave feeling a little more comforted, enlightened, and with some spirit reflections or reflections around spiritual topics that you can then later on go in depth and investigate in your own time using the technology we have at our disposal. So I would like to start welcoming people that are here. Elsa from London, Helder, our dear friend Helder Martins from Inner Enlightenment Spiritist Society in New York. Good to have you here, my friends. Wonderful. Yara, my dear mom that I love
I
so much.
love Yara.
Helps us with everything here in Spirit Reflections. She misses you, TJ.
I miss her too.
Dear friend Roger, Dr. Roger, Adilson, Alessandra. It's like a little reunion here.
Nice.
Love it. Ivonete from Brazil. Good evening. Boa noite. So we're going to talk about A Course in Miracles. If you've never heard about it, you're going to learn here for the first time. Elsa, you're still awake? I love it. You're here. Awesome. Thank you for being with us here. We're going to learn about A Course in Miracles and also learn about TJ's personal story and his spiritual journey, which is also deeply intertwined with Spiritism in the United States. And so we're going to give our opening vignette to introduce him. I will read his bio, and then we'll let TJ get us started here. So let's put our opening vignette and get to it. That gets us in the mood. And this is, we had to hire a professional pianist. We spent a lot of money to get the pianist to play this song that I composed because I don't want to keep paying copyrights by getting other people's songs. And so created a little tune. For those that are watching on Instagram, this is a little reminder. There are no comments available there. So if you'd like to interact with us to ask your questions, please go to the YouTube or to the Facebook. And the link is on the bio of the Spirit Reflections Instagram channel. Okay. Now, TJ, he has studied comparative religions at the New School, and he conducts a weekly study group in New York City of A Course in Miracles since 2009. He has been a facilitator also of Spiritist studies at Inner Enlightenment Spiritist Society in New York City for the past 11 years. And he also teaches healing therapies at Housingworks and holds multiple certifications in coaching. So TJ, tell us about you. How did you get where you are today?
Wow. Well, it's a journey, like everybody. I first of all, I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful to be here with you and with everybody tonight. It is like I look over to the right and I see the people that are here, and it's like family. These names that I see there, and yeah, okay. I guess like my story began in Montana. I grew up in Montana. As a little boy, studied catechism, and I I really wanted to believe all the teachings of God. Like it was one of those things that I found a connection with. But as time went on, I had a difficult time in school, and because I just really didn't connect with kids. I was this soft, sensitive kid, a little effeminate, and because of that, it caused a lot of bullying and problems for me. Um, Ultimately, it turned out that I am gay. I'm a gay man, and my family found out about that. But the summer before my mom found out, she had said something to me. There were the two worst things that a mother could hear about her child was, one, that they were hooked on drugs, and two, that they were homosexual. So the next summer, she found a bag of pot in my room, and also a photograph of this guy from Ice Capades. And it wasn't even a racy photograph. It was just him by candlelight, and this long, heartfelt letter. So at that point, my mom and my father sat me down, and they really wanted me to seek professional help for what was happening. And I had felt so stifled between what I was enduring through my daily struggles in school and with kids that were my age, and I was hanging out with kids that were older than me.
What age are we talking about, just so we have an idea?
For me, are the kids.
Both.
So I was about 17, 18.
Okay.
But this even began probably when I was in ninth grade. I started hanging out with kids that were about 3 years older than me. And because of that, like I just accessed like people that are older, are doing older, interesting things. And ultimately I ended up exploring a lot with drugs. And so fast forward, I have this conversation with my family. They want me to get help. And I, in a sarcastic way, I just said, I don't have an issue with it. If you have an issue, maybe you should see this doctor. And so they thought that I would be a bad influence on my younger brother and sister. And so they thought it would be a better idea that I didn't live in their house. So 15 minutes later, I packed up everything I owned, which was not much. And I had a $500 car that I had bought, and I was working as a dishwasher at a pizza parlor, got an apartment in Montana for a month. I couldn't afford it. It was $100 a month, and it came furnished, and I couldn't afford that. Stayed with.
And you were 17 there,
I just
starting this life on your own. Okay.
Just turned 18. So then I stayed with a friend for that summer, and then I took a Greyhound bus from Butte, Montana to Atlanta, Georgia. Lived in Atlanta for about 3 years, and then 3 to 4 years, and then I moved to Los Angeles, where I lived for about 14 years before coming to New York. But what was interesting in my relationship with God was, like, during this time, also this is a time during the AIDS epidemic, and and so many other things were happening. By the time I got to Los Angeles, we have things like there were all these protesters that were coming out, and the shooting of Harvey Milk. We had Matthew Shepard, who he was killed. So you had all of these people that were all these things that highlighted homosexuality and different different choices. And then you had a lot of fundamental Christians that were at these events that were protesting. And it was really hard for me to hold that conflict in my mind of God, who I believed loved me, and then the fact that my parents felt that I was wrong and I didn't belong and I was a bad influence. So therefore, in my mind, I'm not good. And then I see all of this other representation.
So meanwhile, you're seeing this in society play out. This is
Mhm.
the 90s AIDS epidemic and Matthew Shepard and Harvey Milk and the fundamentalists attacking. And as you're in that bus going to Georgia, I just want to maybe take us back in that. What's going in your mind, in your heart, on a faith level, on a spiritual level, perhaps?
I think the fact that I felt so suffocated spiritually, in my environment, and none of that is in blame of my parents or
Sure.
like they're a product of their environment. And Montana is a very conservative place, redneck. It's very beautiful and in its nature, but it's not a very beautiful place for a young gay boy, especially at that time, to be
That time.
living. And so when I'm on that bus, like I'm really I was reading this book, Dancer from the Dance, which is kind of like a little, it's like a historical perspective of gay life in Fire Island and New York and all this stuff, which I hadn't even been to. So I'm learning all about this, about life, about community. And I'm going to Atlanta, where I had a stepbrother that lived there. And I stayed with him for a couple of weeks. I had told him I was going to get a job there. And as soon as I got there, when I got off the bus, he said, TJ, if you come back downtown, just don't go this way, because this is where all the drug dealers are. This is where all the hookers are. And this is the bad side of town, the dark side of town. So I think it was probably that same week I was on MARTA and I went right downtown. And I'm walking around and I'm just looking for something. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I see this bar, and it has black windows, and I go inside and they just have a little publication that has all of the businesses and all of the community happenings. And I got a job as a bartender. So
Wow.
I felt like I didn't have an education. I didn't have money. And there were times in my life where I didn't have even enough to eat. I remember
Wow.
a time in particular where I had asked my family if they would send me something, and they just wouldn't. And, when I look back on those times, they were difficult. They were hard, right? They were my struggle. Like, sexuality to me is part of my destiny. So it brings with it all of its challenges that I get to grow through spiritually,
Right.
to find myself in inner alignment with myself, and whatever my view of God's relationship with that in me is. And I just felt as though I was cared for. I had people around me. I had friends that I had met, and these people, like, they stood in spots for me for moments in my life, like, and for some reason I was always hanging out with people that were smarter than me, that were more successful than me. And whenever I had a chance to do anything that they would have done, I tried to use that as a modeling for my life. And so ultimately, I felt like God was caring for me when I couldn't care for myself. And my mom, even my relationship with my mom, which is really beautiful, because she was 17 when she had me. And
Right.
so she was a kid, had a kid, and we were growing up together. But in 5 years, we didn't see each other. And in those 5 years, she had changed a lot, and I had changed a lot. And I was able to share with her more honestly who I was and what was happening in my life. I didn't have to edit out my conversations for her benefit. And so she's been a great teacher for me. She really has provided me a lot of lessons. And so I met Marianne Williamson in Atlanta. She was speaking, I think, at Science of Religion, like doing like a guest spot there.
And for those that don't know who she is, TJ, tell us a little bit about Marianne Williamson in this context before you tell us that moment in your life.
Okay. Marianne Williamson, people often get confused with her being the person who has written the Course in Miracles. Marianne is like, she's a mentor to me, and she's amazing. She's so smart and intellectually relevant, and knows how to translate what's happening in the moment to the Course in Miracles. But she started studying the Course. I think the Course was first published in 1972 or 75. I can't remember. And I
Early
think
70s, yeah.
and Marianne started shortly after that. And there was a whole group of people that kind of hung out here in New York. A gentleman named John Mundy, who is also a huge teacher of the Course in Miracles. And they had this tight-knit group that got connected with Kenneth Wapnick and Judith Skutch. And Judith Skutch is the woman who is the head of the Foundation for Inner
Peace.
Inner Peace. Yeah, I get confused with my my job yesterday. Yeah, she's really great. But they were all together, and really Kenneth Wapnick, Judith Skutch, and some people from the West Coast helped Helen Schuckman, who is the medium that channeled these works. And then Helen was a professor at Columbia, and was going through a really difficult time.
Right.
And her boss was a gentleman named William Tetford, and he was also a professor in psychology in the medical department there. And Helen was at such odds with herself that she really didn't know what to do. And she was also at the same time having these experiences that she couldn't like put her finger on or understand what was happening.
Okay, just so that we're clear, we're not talking about Marianne anymore. We're talking about the medium who channeled Course in Miracles, right?
Yeah, I'm just clarifying that. So
okay, cool.
But ultimately, we can go back to talking about that later. Marianne is this woman who's just she ran for the presidential office.
President, yeah, she was a presidential candidate in the last cycle for sure.
Yeah, but she has been amazing at disseminating the Course in Miracles, and so she had taught here in New York, and then she moved to the West Coast, and she was teaching at the Subud Theater, where she would do her lectures, and so I went there every Monday, I think it was, and eventually Marianne came back to New York, and that was probably just a few years ago. I think at one point, Fred, you might have met Marianne.
I actually did meet her, but it wasn't in a Course in Miracles context. It was a real estate context, but it was a lot of fun because I already admired her. I put the name of her book here, A Return to Love, TJ. That's what really catapulted her in the collective sphere, right?
And that is her understanding of, and how it resonated with meaning for her in relationship to the teachings of A Course in Miracle. So
got it.
Marianne is a teacher. She is not the writer. She is not the medium or the transcriber, but she's probably the most well-known outside of some other people who not in the public arena, but maybe the theological arena. Not William Tedford, Kenneth Wapnick, and John Mundy, and people like that, and Judith Skutch. So they're really responsible for taking. I want to show you something, just because you can kind of see from this is original notes from Helen Schuckman that was transcribed from what she was receiving in A Course in Miracles, and so she's grew up Jewish, and she's receiving these inspirations that sound a lot like Jesus.
And meanwhile, this is a psychologist professor at Columbia University, a very hardcore academic institution, very scientific oriented. And she's surrounded by colleagues that think alike: surgeons, physicians, psychiatrists. That's where she's at, when she starts to receive these, right, TJ? Here
Right.
in New York City.
Right. And so I think she started receiving communications in 1965, but the Course in Miracles, the book, was not published until 1972. And it was only because of these other people, Kenneth Wapnick and Judah Skutch, they helped to bring this together and edit the book. So this version that I hold here is from the Circle of Atonement.
Mm-hmm.
And then it is an atoned writing of the notes of A Course in Miracles. So it has elements of
Helen's
own notes. And then I have another book here, which is
for those like me that don't know what you just said, what is an atoned writing?
A noted. I'm sorry.
Like annotations,
annotations.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
This is the book that I study from, and this is the book that the foundation recommends. So after the book was published, because it had so many different people that were involved in it, there were all these fragmentations of copies of published copies. So the Circle of Atonement, the Pathways of Light, I think there's a Sparkle edition, which is just a black cover. They're all different publishers, so they have different translations, but this is the book that the foundation recommends. And in this book is a text that I study from in my groups. There's a workbook for students, and this workbook has 365 lessons. So they're meant to be used as daily lessons, but the course also sort of understands us at the level that we're at, and it tells us that we shouldn't do more than one lesson a day. And if we need to take our time and we can do one lesson a week, then to just do them consecutively. But I think it's for any of your listeners and people that are here and interested in studying A Course in Miracles, I highly recommend doing the daily meditations, the lessons on your own. And then if you can, there are so many resources. If you go on the Foundation for Inner Peace or Pathways of Light or the Circle of Atonement, all of these sites have resources
right
for groups.
And even when I was doing some research on YouTube, there are so many channels that have daily lesson number 48 or 65, the actual reading, and some commentary, some meditation, some guided visualizations for people to truly internalize the teaching. So it's all out there, folks.
Yeah, it's truly one of the most beautiful things, because it's a psycho-spiritual text. So it's really
psycho, not in the sense of psychic, but in the sense of psychological, right?
Right. So the course really is like, when you think of atonement, I think of just the word at-one-ment. And
you can at-one-ment.
And our psyche has at some point split into this fragmentation and these perceptions that make it very difficult for us to connect with ourselves spiritually. And so it is meant to help remove the blocks to what it would say is love.
I put it here, atonement at one ment, right? One thing I found in the course, I haven't studied it in depth like you have. You conduct weekly study groups in your home there that you can, in the days of the pandemic, you can also broadcast on Zoom. And so that happens on Saturday mornings. And so I make an open invitation for anyone here who's interested in learning and studying with TJ's group on Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. His group meets, and now they're meeting virtually, and they study the book, and the people that are reflecting around it are just really beautiful people. I know a few of them, just wonderful, heartfelt group. And one thing that I noticed, TJ, is that there's a lot of deconstructing that the course aims to do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of emptying out a very sort of methodical, systematized deconstructing of our preconceived ideas before you start adding stuff in, right?
Right. That's amazing that you are able to appreciate that, because the first half of the lessons are just about the deconstruction, and it's it can be a little heavy mentally, just because it takes you one way, and then it almost takes you another, and at some point you're deconstructing all of these old beliefs, and I found that for some of my students, like at some point, like they felt very vulnerable because the foundation of their belief system that they had relied upon no longer is solid for them, and they also don't have this other one in place.
Right. The transition, the transformation, right?
Yeah. So and my journey with the course has really been slow. So I studied, as I said, not only since 2009, but I've been studying in the 80s and with Marianne in Los Angeles.
Go ahead. I do want to take, maybe this is a good moment for us to bring Marianne's quote here.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so folks, for those that are wanting to see Marianne Williamson, one of the biggest sort of interpreters of the Course in Miracles that she teaches, this is a documentary that's available on YouTube. It's probably the oldest documentary that was assembled and actually interviews the creators and takes us through the actual genesis of how the text came about. It's a really beautiful documentary. It's only 1 hour long, but there was a 30-second moment that really floored me. I had to stop. I had to go back and listen to it a few times. And I wanted to share here so that we could grasp one of the many deep ideas of the Course, beautiful concepts. And here's Marianne talking about this when she actually experiences it for the first time. So I'm going to put it on the screen. Now we'll talk about that. And then let's hear your comments about it, because I'd like to know if you guys have any feedback on what she says and how you resonate with it too, because I think it's cool. A really cool quote. All right, here we go.
Felt, as so many people have said, that I had come home. What I didn't have that A Course in Miracles gave me is a deep sense that faith in God is inseparable from faith in other people. And that's what it means to me in my life. It is a continuous reminder that my temptation to find guilt in my brother is an attack on myself. That was what...
I'm going to put that again.
So many people have said that I had come home. What I didn't have that A Course in Miracles gave me is a deep sense that faith in God is inseparable from faith in other people. And that's what it means to me in my life. It is a continuous reminder that my temptation to find guilt in my brother is an attack on myself. That was what so moved me the first day I ever read a page of the Course in Miracles, and it's the message that most moves me today.
Wow.
It's really beautiful, right?
Faith in God is inseparable from faith in other people.
Yes.
That alone, we have to digest. And then my temptation to find guilt in my brother is an attack on myself.
Why would that be?
Oh, Tiago says that the audio is a little low, Tiago. Okay, so I'm going to repeat what she said for those that maybe didn't hear it. So she says that one of the biggest lessons that she got from A Course in Miracles is that faith in God is inseparable from faith in other people. And her temptation, our temptation to find guilt in my brother is an attack on myself. Okay.
So the Course in Miracles is really about forgiveness, and forgiveness involves the atonement and the at-one-ment process, and in that process is what would be deemed as miracle. There are miracles, and miracles serve only the function of the atonement, and once the atonement has occurred, they no longer serve any purpose. So they only have that function, and so,
and in this sense of atonement, it is to restore the oneness within.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. I like to explain it to students this way. You know, we have this difficulty because we see through our limited perception of our human eyes, and very often, because life is so overwhelming, you know, we haven't even taken the time to connect inward, to find where we are spiritually, and it's only in that inner connection to our spirit that we find the truth. And I think if Miguel Ruiz and a lot of other people have explained this, but we are an idea in the mind of God, forever extended, and we have never left the garden. For some reason, we think we were in this garden, we did something wrong, and we separated into these, and we went someplace else. We had to hide, you know? So there's a part of our consciousness that really wants to, it doesn't want you to look inside, because
we are an idea in the mind of God, forever extended, and we never left the garden.
Never left it. And so the Course in Miracles would say that we are still here in the mind of God, and only our perception of this world and is like a construct of our separateness. Like we've separated from the consciousness of spirit. And you think about that, and the Course in Miracles works a lot on forgiveness, because I need to find that forgiveness within myself. I need to release that judgment within myself so that I can see myself as a spirit, so that I can see the wholeness of my spirit. Because in every movement, in every instant, I am a perfect idea in the mind of God evolving, right? So I think that for me to find that, I have to ask God, I have to ask for that relationship. I have to ask God to show me what in my spirit that he would have me see.
And this was a struggle even for the creator of the Course, who never intended to be a leader of some spiritual teaching. That was the last thing on her mind at the time, right?
Just the whole process was kind of interesting, because here is William Tedford, the guy who transcribed the teachings and sort of like helped her sort of gain a perspective and said, no, you got to do this. Who
was a psychiatrist at Columbia University, her colleague there, right? At the faculty.
And Helen's Jewish. They end up spending so much time together that Helen develops feelings for William. So she's got this love affair and William's like, it's never going to happen. and so she's at odds with the process, and at odds with the teachings, because the teachings aren't of her Jewish teachings. They're of a Christian fundamental teaching, and she doesn't know why it's coming up that way. And I think that, when we look at the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and Jesus comes to us, like Jesus brings not a new idea, but he disseminates the not the content, but the context, which is love, right? And so if we are an idea within the mind of love, we are extended out into the universe, right? Forever expanding and purifying. So in every instant of that, while I'm still in my purification process, that part of my process is perfect, it's whole, and it's complete. And my vision of what I've understood from my relationship with God is God sees me as a child. He doesn't expect me to be at the end, but he expects me to be where I am.
Right.
And in being where I am and allowing myself the opportunity to learn, I can only learn without judgment. If I judge,
right.
if I'm like, I judge, sometimes I used to judge that part of me that in Montana that was so afraid, and that I tried to camouflage myself to blend in, and did a lot of things that ended up taking me so far away from myself. But I have to go back and find that part of me, because I can't leave a part of myself, right?
Right.
And this is how the minutia of the fragmentation of separateness occurs. And so I bring back together what God created as one, right? One spirit. And that one spirit is connected to the one mind, the mind of Christ. So people look at the teachings of Jesus, and even the Course in Miracles looks at the teachings of Jesus, and we often see the suffering, and we relate to the suffering because we identify with our own suffering. And as a little boy, I remember being in church and seeing that image of Jesus on the cross, and all the stations of the cross around me. And it was as horrifying to me then as it is today,
Painful.
that there's a consciousness that could create, that would manifest something like this and project that onto another spiritual being. You are my brother, and you truly are my brother. I really, really believe that in my heart. And so actually, you're probably my older brother, even though I'm older than you.
And because of the hair?
No, but Fred, you have an incredible wisdom, and I've learned so much with you, and you inspire me in so many different ways. And this is just another one of those ways. But it's like when we're brought together, our personalities sometimes rub up against each other, and that's friction, right? But without those struggles, we don't grow.
Right.
It's only through those difficulties, only through the challenges, only through the things that I couldn't accept, that I have to find acceptance for in myself, that I find forgiveness. And when I find that in myself, then I can see you not for what you're doing to me, that I'm not victimized by your experience. And Spiritism, I think, would say this, that our fingerprints are on everything, right?
Right.
Because in some other life, we've probably manifested. So in some other evolution of our spirit, we've carried forward something. But it's really about just seeing ourselves whole as spirit, and seeing our brother as spirit. And our only goal is to call forth my brother's truth, his greatness, his wholeness, his perfection. If I'm your little brother, even though you think I've done something wrong, I hope you're going to teach me. Our dad wants you to teach me. He wants you to show me the way. But if you judge me, what you're doing is you're showing what you have faith in. So Marianne's really talking about, I can't have faith in God and then have this judgment, because what I'm saying then is what's here on this earth, what's here in this occurrence, this situation, my projected thought is what's real. I'm holding faith in that. And that's
Absolutely.
quite literally a fearful thought.
And what she said also, as you're saying this too, as I did some research before our conversation today, the course also strikes a lot on the notion of victimhood and being a victim. And I believe that if you have these deeply ingrained belief that we were expelled from a garden because we've sinned, then on a subconscious level, deep there, we are victims. And we believe it. And so if you're able to deconstruct this primal notion that we were never expelled from the garden, we're still there, and it's all beautiful and perfect within, then it helps us to then leave the victim state and then stop seeing victims out there and then pointing the fingers and all of that. And I believe that you actually embody that, TJ. And I got to say, I've met you in a spiritist center that has a 90% presence of Brazilians, many of whom didn't really speak fluent English. And yet you were able to be so flexible, so understanding, so patient, and be able to, just like water, work with the flow that was given there, always in such a generous way and compassionate way that in many ways, I think you've exemplified some of these teachings of the course for more than 11 years as you continue to be of service in a spiritist center and continue to help disseminate this truly beautiful spiritual tool, this philosophy that we call it spiritism or the spiritist doctrine. And I actually, as I say this, I want to lead to a question. In what ways do you see similarities between spiritism ideas and the Course in Miracles ideas?
Well, spiritism is really about looking at our evolution through the lens of reincarnation and the lens of mediumship and teachings from the spirit world. These teachings of A Course in Miracles are also through the lens of mediumship. They are also inspirations from spirit. So they're both, and actually. There's so much, like the spirits book in spiritism is really like a psycho-spiritual text.
Yeah.
You know, it has a lot of commonality with explaining the different aspects. And so what I was saying to you earlier, when if somebody's studying the course, I recommend them studying the lessons and then studying the text, because the text gives context to the lessons. Otherwise, it's going to be too heady, and you're not going to be able to hold it. So, for me, one of the things, so I have a little bit of belief in God. I sort of feel like God's presence was with me. Fast forward, I'm here in New York. My life's falling apart because of me. I have everything good in my life, but I can't hold it, you know, and because I kept thinking, if I had these things in my life, I would find happiness. I would be at peace with myself. And the more I had, the more dis-ease I had, the more unpeaceful I felt. And it was only in a moment that I went to Brazil that I was sitting on the beach and seeing the beauty of the nature there and the richness of the culture and the warmness and also the pain of the poverty. And I was on the beach, but those things were together. And they had something that I didn't have. And everybody was smiling. Everybody was laughing, no matter what they were doing. You know, it was, even if it was something that was like maybe not the most luxurious or something that, you know, like they were happy because it's so simple. You don't need things to make you happy. And so here I was with all these things, unhappy. And I came back home. And I had to make a decision. I had so much going on in my life that I really needed to land. And I had a partner that I was in a relationship with, and he brought me to Inner Enlightenment for the first time. I went one time, and then I was gone for about a month, and then I came back, and while I was away, I had gotten a message from Angie Stewart, who was one of the directors, and she wrote me this heartfelt message, and it made me want to return. So I came back, not because of the teachings of Spiritism, not because I was even interested in them, but because the night I was there, I felt so much love. I felt Elder was there, and Jenny was there, and Abilio was there, and all of Adilson, and all of these people that and you know, like all these people that made that environment so loving. And I needed to be loved. I needed to be in love's presence so I could just land and begin to find myself. And I took these the propositions of both the Course in Miracles as well as Spiritism, and I'm not all that smart, but I tried to ask myself, like, where does this live in my life? What are the examples that I can point to that is like that in my life? And it was only in those pieces together, and they layered. So it's like I grew up Catholic, my godmother, my godfather, you know, the Bible that I carried around with me forever, you know, and all these religious things that are symbolic of the importance of God in my life didn't come together, you know. And then all of a sudden, I just said, I'm going to dedicate, God, if you give me the time, I will treat that time as though it's a blessing. And I will take that blessing and I will do whatever you want me to do with it. And it's maybe the one thing that I have done well is that I really feel a responsibility. I feel that brother responsibility, like because God has been so good to me in so much abundance that I feel called to share that blessing with others. And so I try to, and I'm a student, I'm not a teacher, you know,
right.
But I love learning.
And knowing on a personal level, you truly embody this non-judgmental, welcoming approach of open-mindedness to help people. And you do help a lot of people on a weekly basis on so many different arenas in New York City, which is really admirable. And it's part of it is your roots that I know you got from these spiritual texts like Course in Miracles, like Spiritism, and so many others. TJ, I wanted to invite you to share something from the book that you had there. And as you pick them up, tell us a little bit about the book while I share the screen here for people that are interested in purchasing it.
So this is the book. It's called Gifts from A Course in Miracles. And it's actually taken from little excerpts that are out of A Course in Miracles. And Helen was also a poet, and she wrote, this book is by Francis Vaughan and Roger Walsh, and Roger Walsh wrote Reflections on the Mind of Christ, and really, like they all have these strong spiritual aspects that they brought to the book, but they pulled from the content of the Course in Miracles and wrote different selections on different aspects of the lessons and what we learn. So tonight, one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is one of the lessons that's called a new beginning. And so, you know, we've talked a lot, and I really invite you. First of all, I encourage whatever lifts you up in spirit. You know, if it's not A Course in Miracles, if it's Spiritism, if it's Christianity, if it's Buddhism, if it's the Tao Te Ching, whatever that is, we need to have. For me, I need to have a community to learn with. Need to have a community to grow with. I need to have a community to serve, because that is where, and this is probably why I do what I do. It's how I've found meaning and how I found purpose in my life. And it's funny because all of those things that used to be so important to me have just fallen away. So I'm going to just invite everybody to relax, maybe.
Yeah, let's engage into a moment of introspection, reflection, meditation, get better prepared and acclimated to receive these ideas you're going to read for us now.
And so let's just take a deep breath in, and then as we release our breath, we'll just let go of anything that would prevent us from being fully present here now, listening to the inspirations of these words. A new beginning. There will come a time when images have all gone by, and you will see you know not what you are. It is to this unsealed and open mind that truth returns, unhindered and unbound, where concepts of the self had been laid by, is truth revealed exactly as it is. Let us be still an instant and forget all the things we ever learned, all the thoughts we had, and every preconception of what things mean and what their purpose is. Let us remember not our own ideas of what the world is for. We do not know. Let every image of everyone be loosened from our mind and swept away. Be innocent of judgment, unaware of any thoughts of evil or of good that ever crossed your mind of anyone. Now do you know him not, but you are free to learn of him and learn of him anew. Only be quiet. You will need no rule but this to let your practicing today lift you above the thinking of the world and free your vision from the body's eyes. Only be still and listen. Simply do this. Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is, all concepts you have learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is true or false or good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with holy, empty hands unto your God. So it is.
Amen to that. I loved how the central idea is about removing anything from my hand so that it's wholly empty, emptying out.
And it sort of also was in alignment with what Marianne was saying. It's about releasing that judgment and about really seeing God in each other. I swear to God, you guys have all gotten more beautiful as time has gone by. But you know, maybe it is the way that we see each other. You know, I'm around so many people that are so open-hearted and who also struggle like me, you know.
Yeah.
But we're learning, and we're on this journey together, and we're not alone, and that's the beauty of this whole thing. And I think we're at a very important moment in a spiritual transition.
Right. I'm going to recap for those that since we got to close, but some of the things I've taken away from our conversation tonight is truly deconstructing this notion of being a victim, because we never were expelled from that garden, mythically, symbolically. So we are at one with God. Forgiveness, such a process for us to embark on, such a journey to learn forgiveness in such a wholesome, deep way. The Course in Miracles can be a very powerful tool for it. And John is saying here, we and you have evolved. Thank you, John. Lovely, lovely thought as well, of course. Gloria had mentioned this earlier, because we see God in other. When we don't fall into the temptation of finding faults in my brother, because I understand I'm attacking myself always when I do that, right? So, and one of the last things I just wanted to mention, like all of these enlightened spiritual tools, which I, for one, believe they're part of the beautiful arsenal of peace that the Consoler is bringing to the earth. And the Course in Miracles is just one of them as well. It's not meant to isolate you into a sect or a cult or a belief system or a faith. You get to practice this alongside with every other tool and creed and belief system. So it's very freeing that way. So let's go deep into this tool as well. And I wanted to thank you, TJ, once again for being here, for sharing this time with us.
My pleasure.
Invite everyone to come to Spirit Reflections YouTube channel, to subscribe, to send your feedback about what kind of topics you'd like to hear and what kind of conversations you'd like to see. Elza, thank you so much for being here with us. Greetings to all the beautiful people on that side of the pond.
Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yara says this course gives freedom to us from ourselves, and she and her friends are actually doing a weekly study of the Course in Miracles. And she said it's been so transforming on so many levels. So thanks, guys, for being here, Tiago. And let's continue to go on this journey together. And I always like to close our broadcasts with this song from 1969's Age of Aquarius from the group called Fifth Dimension. And it's a mantra that is a reminder for us to invite the light of the sun so that it can shine in. Let the sun shine in. And so, TJ, big hug. Stay well, be safe, be healthy. Hope we get to see you in person for an in-person hug soon.
I would love that.
And we will see you all around the fire at a future episode. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.